All right, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to tackle a very, very big topic, but one that's near and dear to my heart. It falls under the category of human factors, human dimensions, okay? And within human factors and dimensions, there are physical factors, there are moral and mental factors, but this one is specifically going into cognitive models of decision making. So that's what we're going to discuss today, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. The good news is that I've done research in this area, and I will try to remember in the description to link a couple of articles, research articles, as well as one from the Infantry magazine at Fort Benning, Georgia. All right, having said that, let's break down some of the history, and we'll break down 3 interrelated models. So, the history goes in 1953, Colonel John Boyd of the United States Air Force. Now, at the time, he was not a lieutenant colonel, but nonetheless, John Boyd was a F-86 Sabre pilot. He flew only a couple or few, just a very small number of combat missions at the very end of the Korean War, and then didn't fly anymore. But he was a capable pilot, and he was also an astute observer, and that really comes into play. Well, at the time, we're told that there were no Top Gun aerial combat schools as we know them today anyway, that neither the Navy or the Air Force had them. And so Boyd was trying to understand and really come to terms with how effective fighter pilots fought, frankly, how they dealt with life and death situations, and how they gained their victories. Now, this is very interesting because what he's not studying, note, I'll get to this later, he does not study novices. He does not study, new fighter pilots. What he's really looking at is what the successful fighter pilots are doing, and having just enough experience himself to recognize that, right, through observation. So, Boyd gives us the OODA loop. Let's get right into it. The OODA loop is observe, orient, decide, act. What he's saying is, through his observations, was that pilots were observing. They're scanning their space, right? Their arousal levels are very, very broad. And so they're scanning their space, the skies. Are they friendly? Are they not friendly? Do we have friendlies in here? And then something will catch their attention. Something. Let's say a glint on the horizon. And they'll orient on that something to say, hey, what the heck is this? Well, that something passes them by at the speed of fast, and it's a silver MiG-15 with a great big red star on the tail. They've oriented on it. Now they have to decide, do I want to run away bravely? Do I want to give chase? Do I want to do nothing and just keep on my path? What am I going to do here? So they make a decision. I am going to turn and give chase. So that's a decision. They have to go into that action right away. They act on that decision. The very fact that they act on that decision, which, by the way, no decision is also an action. The very fact that they do that means that the enemy fighter will also make a decision and act. Can be many different things. It can be that they both decide, yep, this is a turning engagement, let's go and fight each other. But what my point here is that when you act, you change the environment. That means this whole thing loops around and comes back to observe. And you start going through it again. So this is why it's often referred to as the OODA loop. The OODA loop. John Boyd gives us the OODA loop. And now, you've heard this discussed because it catches on. I'll get to how that happened in a minute, but you've heard this and you know its value because law enforcement officers and military and even gaming communities say, oh, get inside his OODA loop. What this means is that you get through this faster than your opponent does. And as you do that, your action, you're taking the initiative because you're making quick decisions and you're acting, and you're taking the initiative and you're keeping them reacting to you. That is, they just can't finish this loop as fast as you because you have greater situational awareness. And so that's called getting inside of their OODA loop. There's also called disrupting their OODA loop, when your action startles them so much that they're having a difficult time orienting on what you're doing and or making a decision as to what they should do. And that's that surprise element. Now you've disrupted their OODA loop. This is so common, in spite of the fact that it comes from 1950s, that OODA loop, getting inside the OODA loop and disrupting the OODA loop, are now part of our idiomatic meaning within military and law enforcement security services. So the rest of the story is that Boyd takes this to the Air Force and they say, we don't care. You know, you're full of hot air, whatever. And they pat him on the head, yeah, that's nice, fly boy, but he won't give it up. And he quickly becomes persona non grata with the Air Force, simply because he won't give it up. He says, look, we owe this to our pilots. This is the moral, ethical thing to do. And so he keeps bringing it forward, and he brings it forward to other branches of services. And the Marine Corps in the early 1960s grabs this and says, wait, hold on, we think you're onto something here. And he's like, yes, finally, Marine aviators will be given the OODA loop. Marines say, aviators? What are you talking about? We have battle staff. We have battle staff at battalion and brigade of infantry, armor, and artillery that need to use this. They need to understand and embrace this. This is what smart, successful people do. So we want our staff collectively to observe and orient what is going on here, to come together and decide different courses of action and select one. That course of action now becomes a plan of action, and we act on it. The Marine Corps grabs this and uses it to great effect. And so, surprising to John Boyd, he's like, wow, this has application outside of gunfighting, you know, in jets. So the Army picks it up and it just becomes part of the parlance. I forget when Boyd retires and then dies. I want to say it was like late 90s or something. And as soon as he passes away, of course, the Air Force, United States Air Force, comes and says, Lieutenant Colonel John Boyd, that's our boy. He did this thing. This is our, you know, the Air Force gift to the cognitive models of, you know, for the world. You know, that's our gift. And it is a very, very squared away. You know, there's a lot of nuance into it. In fact, we're going to break that down just a bit by looking at other cognitive models. So this is a once over. It's actually very detailed, and I would encourage you at least to go to Wikipedia and look this up because it breaks it down much further. But that's the big picture view. Now, late 1960s, a gentleman by the name of Klein, it's Gary Klein? I think it's Gary Klein and Associates, but Klein and Associates. So he's a researcher in the laboratories, and he too leaves the laboratories. And the reason he does that is he's looking at decision making. And like all, you know, common practice at that time was to grab people off the street and say, hey, have you ever played this game called tic-tac-toe? No, never heard of that before. Okay, we'll put you in a laboratory against other people that have never heard of tic-tac-toe, and we'll watch you play these games against each other. You know, they're trying to induce stress and stuff like that, but looking at how novices make decisions. Klein says, don't care, not important. What's important is how very, very successful people make decisions. Be they politicians or, you know, corporate CEOs, are there, you know, emergency services and medical services, or Olympians. And so Klein and Associates, he starts his own company called Klein and Associates, and they leave the reservation of the, you know, scientific laboratory and go out into the real world and start looking at what's often referred to as naturalistic decisions. That is how people are making decisions in a naturalistic environment. But more specifically, he's looking for wildly successful people. And so he goes off to the Marine Corps as well as several other different areas he's looking at. I do believe they studied Olympians as well. And he's saying, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And he's just not initially having a lot of success for, you know, for whatever, for a decade or so. But he has this big breakthrough when he starts working with fire departments. And so the story goes, and I'm probably butchering the poor story, but it's the outcome that's important. The story goes that either he or one of his associates is riding with a fire department. They go, ring, okay, big fire, everybody get in the trucks and let's start driving. And he's watching the captain. His theory is this: en route to the fire, the captain will create a minimum of 2 courses of action. Remember, we haven't barked any orders. We haven't selected one yet, so it's not a plan of action. He's just creating alternate courses of action, and he had some metric that they had to be discreet enough and effective enough, and there was some metric in there, but this is what he believed he did. 2, at least 2, no more than 3 courses of action, and then he gets to the fire, realizes which one is most suitable out of some kind of schema or scripts, and then he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. That doesn't seem to happen at all. And so there's this huge breakthrough. Is one thing that the fire captains very commonly say, I don't know that I've ever made a decision. Which of course they have, but this shows you that fire departments are a meritocracy. How did you get to be a fire captain? Well, you've been doing this for 20, 25 years. You fought enough fires, you have this extensive Rolodex of experience, as well as good training and good people, and so that's how you became the fire captain. So that when you jump out of the truck, you can go right through your mental Rolodex. What is this like? How do I fight this? And in fact, that seems to be exactly what was happening. When asked, what courses of action were you considering while we were rushing to this great big threatening dangerous fire, the fire captains were saying, none. I was actually thinking how my son might improve his his soccer game, because I was watching him at practice last week, and I think he has this problem, that he could really get up on his game if he would solve those problems. Completely unrelated. The fire captain jumps out of the truck, boom, boots on the ground, right? Looks around, smells, looks, listens, sizes this thing up. And what he's doing is he's going through his Rolodex of experiences. And he looks and he says, this is like the ABC schoolhouse fire we fought 2 years ago. I know how we were successful there. I'll apply those same principles. He barks out orders. That's the plan of action. He barks out the orders, and everybody starts executing that. And essentially, they are refighting with nuanced details. They're refighting the ABC schoolhouse fire. He recognized the fire. He recognized the problem, and then said, played these scripts in his head and said, this is the best way, as I recall. This is the best way. He might vary what they did at the ABC schoolhouse fire slightly. I think if we do this instead of that, we'll even get better results. So those are the scripts. But he recognizes it and he barks out the orders. Now here's what's really interesting. As he listens to his crew's fight, and he's listening to the radios, and he's smelling different smells and looking for different colors of smoke, he suddenly realizes, hair on the back of his neck, standing right up, and he says, whoa. This is not the ABC schoolhouse fire from 2 years ago. This is the XYZ warehouse fire from 9 years ago. And we damn near lost 2 firemen. They were badly injured in that fire. And so now the schema, that is the model in his head, has changed, and now he's playing new scripts, and he's on the radio barking out whole new orders. So he's looking at schema, models, from his experience, playing scripts, how this can play the same, or how I might tweak it a bit for better performance, and then he's putting that into his decision and actions. So that we knew somewhere in here was recognition primed decision. That's Klein's gift to the world. Recognition primed decisions, RPD. We know they're in here. It's somewhere between the orientation, decision, action. We just didn't know how it fit together. So RPD fit in UDA. Love telling this story because I get to be one of the heroes, not the only hero. Working with General Roger Ward, Dr. Nathan Lawrence, and at the time, Sergeant Tyler Jackson, who now works for U.S. Army University, I get to work with a very talented team, and we conducted some interviews. We were following some previous study of mine on leadership and decision making, frankly. And we decided, okay, what we need to do is we need to get some soldiers and some Marines into a discussion group and pan out this idea that had emerged, and said, let's follow up on that. And we were conducting what's called an interpretive phenomenological analysis, IPA. It's a type of qualitative research, okay? doesn't really matter, but what's important is that we got these young soldiers and Marines, officers and NCOs, junior officers and junior NCOs in there to argue about their experiences in training and in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And we thought we were chasing one dog when another dog emerged. You don't expect an IPA to give you, and that's not a beer, you don't expect the IPA to net a cognitive model. But that is exactly what happened in the over the course of several different interview groups, is that this model started to emerge. And we're like, oh my gosh. And first off, we recognize the model. It is scripts, and it is question scripts specifically. But we recognize that this was nesting within RPD, recognition prime decisions. So from that research, and again, that's what I'll link to, from that research, we came out with 4 questions, 4 scripts, netted 5 different outcomes under pressure, under time pressure, austere conditions. Here are the 4 scripts. Script number 1, is this mine? Now this is really critical. This is the very first thing you ask. Is this my task? Is this my responsibility? Is this my mission? Does this fall within my commander's intent? And if it doesn't, well then just bypass it. And that's really what it came down to. That's what we need you to do. Is this mine? No, it is not. Bypass. Now, there are 2 ways that this might become a yes. One way, it does fall within your mission and commander's intent. Well, of course, that's going to be a yes. But beyond that, we started to recognize that there are immediate threats to you and your team, where you can say, well, that's not my mission, but it is now my problem. So let's talk about that one for a minute. There is, in the fictional account, the fictional movie, Saving Private Ryan, there is a moment where, walking through the French countryside, Captain Miller, who's played by Tom Hanks, comes across some kind of radar site that's protected with a German machine gun nest. In fact, I think there were 2, but it doesn't matter. The point is, he decides, I'm going to attack that. And this comes up often in discussion with leaders, that specific incident. First off, it's fictional, so it's easy. No one's ego is so on the line here. But a lot of people say, yeah, he did the right thing, and all of this, although they recognize it cost him dearly, because as he gave in his rationale, why? Look at these dead paratroopers here. We can't leave this bad guy enemy machine gun here. They might kill more Americans, and that's all noble, very honorable. Also complete hogwash. So he came here to win the entire war all by himself, just that tiny little band of brothers, and they're going to go forth and find Private Ryan, and they're going to slaughter the Wehrmacht in the meantime, right? Everybody's going to die while they walk. And come on, it's ridiculous. That was so outside the scope of his mission. And I can only say, well, it was fatigue or something like this that was wearing on him, because all he had to do, but what about the German machine guns? Walk back 50 meters, take a strip of the dead people stuff, get something to write with and say, enemy MG, arrow, done. You just told everybody that's walking this way, oh my God, there's an enemy MG up there. Now they know you've saved them. Bypass, because that really wasn't his mission. Now, let's change it just 1 minute. What if they started shooting at him and pinned him? Guess what? That's not in his commander's intent, find Ryan and get him home. It's not in his mission, we're going to rescue this guy and evacuate him, but suddenly it's thrust upon him because now it's life or limb. Now he can die. And so had the machine guns opened up on Captain Miller and his team, this would be quite a different answer. It would not be a no and a bypass. It would be a yes, now let's do something about it. So let's go to the second question. The second question then is this. Can I take them? And I mean my team, my immediate team, this team right here, my fire team, me and my buddy, Captain Miller's crew, can I take them? Because if the answer is yes, and now notice, this was a no, then a yes, now we've switched them. Pay attention. Because if the answer is yes, I can take them alone, do something. Attack. Can I take them? Yes, then do it. But what if the answer is no? I don't have the resources to do this. Well, then you have to ask the third question. Can I take them with help if I seek help? The answer is yes, seek help and attack. So it's only a slight variation of your second question, but it's a very critical nuance. Is this mine? No, bypass. Is this mine? Yes, this is mine. I have to deal with this. Can I take them alone? Can I take them? Yes, then do it. No, can I take them with help? Is there help available? Is it right here? Can I get them? Yes, get that help and do something. But what if there isn't help? Or what if the help isn't enough help? Well, then we have another no, don't we? Then we ask the fourth question. 4 questions, 5 possible outcomes. Can I hold what I got? Can I hold this ground? I can't take them. I can't take them with help, but can I hold right here what I got? Because we've already said, yeah, dude, this is your mission. Can I hold what I got? If yes, defend. Hold it. Hold it until you've been relieved. Defend it. Because it is in your commander's intent and or mission. Get it? Hold it until you're told, don't hold it anymore. But what if the answer is no? I cannot take them. I cannot take them with help. I cannot hold. What do I do now? Withdraw. Preserve your force. Preserve your combat power. Save yourselves. Withdraw. 4 questions, 5 outcomes. Bypass. Attack, attack, defend, withdraw. First question, is this mine? No, bypass. Yes, can I take them? Yes, do it. No, can I take them with help? Yes, do it. No, can I hold what I got? Yes, defend. No, get the hell out of here. That's what's going on in the EDM, the Engagement Decision Matrix, the EDM. Often called or also called idiom. What's really fascinating is these are the question scripts. Inside of OODA, you can see this is the observe, orient, decide, then act. But each one of these scripts, here, 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 these scripts are the RPD. That's where the RPD links in to OODA loop. And it's the EDM for the engagement decision matrix, the decision whether or not to engage in this activity. It's the EDM that lets us pan through this. Now, I said we found this through soldiers and Marines, junior officers and junior NCOs in both training and in combat conditions. Let me give you one of them. We had a combat engineer, U.S. Army combat engineer, E5, in Afghanistan, riding in some big Buffalo vehicle, and I think there was 2 vehicles if I remember correctly, and they are clearing IEDs from this mountain pass, with a mountain up there. And so he's out there, Humpty Dumpty Dum Dum Dump, knows what his mission is, knows what his commander's intent is, looks up, as he is the leader of this, combat engineer unit, he looks up and there, let's say about a mile away, 1,600 meters, he sees a group of Taliban walking down a trail, clearly fixated on him and his team, and they've got, some light machine guns, rifles, and a couple RPGs, and they're 1,600 meters away. So the first thing he says is, well, is this mine? And he's like, well, no, frankly, it's not in my commander's intent, and it's not in my mission today. And so he says, okay, it's not mine, but I'm smart enough, playing scripts in my mind, to know that if they keep walking here, within time, they're going to be within range. And it's going to become mine. So he says, wow, that's really disconcerting. Let's keep thinking about this. Can I take them? And he says, well, I have the weapons to attack, but frankly, they outnumber me, they'll outmaneuver me, and when they get within 300 to 400 meters, those RPG-7s are going to open this buffalo up pretty damn quick. So he says, no, I can't take them. And then he says, well, can I take them with help? And he thinks about it, and he says, wow, about a mile back behind me is a dismounted infantry unit. U.S. infantry unit. Let me call and see if I can. Well, he calls them up, says, hey guys, I got a bit of a problem. You know, they're all sitting there smoking and joking, and they look over there and say, oh, yeah, we see those guys, broad daylight, coming down to attack you guys. So this infantry platoon, about 40 guys, picks up and says, fine, let's get our rockets and machine guns and grenade launchers and let's start walking so that we're in range of those guys. So they do. They just pick up and start walking. He's still going through there. Well, can I hold? No, because I'm going to have to withdraw. This sergeant realized, this engineer sergeant realized, I'm going to have to withdraw unless these infantry can do something for me. Well, they do. They get up and they start walking towards the Taliban. Nary a shot is fired this day because the Taliban look down and go, oh, where'd those guys come from? They also are going through their OODA loop. They also are going through their RPD and their EDM. And they say, yeah, we're really, really outgunned here. We have the high ground, right, Darth Vader? But it doesn't matter when we're outgunned that badly. So they turn around and decide, nah, game's over today, and they take their football and they walk home. They follow the trail back up in the mountains and disappear, and again, not a shot is fired. But it's an interesting example of the OODA, the EDM, and the scripts that are unique to recognition primed decision. This lays out three interrelated decision models: the OODA loop, recognition prime decision, and the engagement decision matrix. Just as OODA is now taught throughout government agencies and even foreign agencies picking it up, we're finding that the EDM, and of course RPD is used even in, like I said, Olympic sports, we're finding that the EDM has far more application than just infantry ground pounding fight. We're being told that when shared, there are emergency room medical professionals that go through this very, very similar process. It's essentially the exact same. Again, the scripts that they play out are nuanced and unique to medical profession, but nonetheless, the EDM plays out the same. Furthermore, poker players, people gambling in games, poker players are reporting, you know what, that's harder for me to flesh out, but they're saying, no, we go through the same thing. So we're seeing some validation of this and some vindication of this in other industries as well. But as warriors, we should be aware, very much aware of OODA, RPD, and EDM as we understand our own decision-making process. All right, thank you, and we'll talk to you later.